Hello, beauty. If you're new here to Midlife by Design, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you to you if you've been listening since the very start. You know that I am your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and midlife coach, here to help you use human design to shed the shoulds and be who you came here to be. So if you're loving this pod, a quick reminder to please hit that subscribe and follow button and share it with a friend. It is so super helpful in getting this pod out there and differentiating it from the gajillion other pods that are out there. And if you are checking this out on YouTube, please subscribe and watch it if you like watching your pods. So today's pod is for you if you have been walking around with this nagging feeling that something's off, that you're tired of this life that you're living, but you aren't necessarily ready to blow the whole thing up quite yet either. Maybe you're foggy on your direction, or maybe you're just perimenopause foggy, like brain foggy. Who the hell knows what the difference is there? And in general, feeling disconnected from your true self. So if you've ever felt like you have lost the thread of your own story, or that the life that you've built no longer fits the woman that you're becoming, I really want you to hear this one. You are not broken, you are just waking up. And this episode helps to shine the light on what that actually looks like. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another inspiring episode of Midlife by Design. I want to talk to you today about being in this space of questioning everything. And it's a very natural space to be in when we are in midlife. And it can mean questioning anything from your job to your relationship to who the hell you are in this phase of life. And I wanted to share with you a story today of a client. It's kind of a case study. And I say it's kind of a case study because, listen, if we work together, I want you to know that I will never share your personal information and your details of your story. And so what I do when I look at case studies is I pull threads from the different women that I have worked with. And so they end up being these amalgamations. So if you're listening to the podcast and I have worked with you, then you may notice elements of your situation in what I'm sharing. And plus also, it may actually be somebody else's situation that you happen to share. I work with a lot of women who are going through or contemplating big changes in their lives because we're in midlife. That's literally what this phase of life is all about, is kind of contemplating that. Your situation may be very similar to another woman's situation. And so I just weave them together to create case studies that help you get a concept of what is it like working with human design to help you during midlife. So the one that I'm going to talk about today is this woman who came to me, and she specifically wanted to know, how do I use my human design to stop feeling exhausted? That was one of her kind of main pain points. Another one was this self-doubt, which was so deeply rooted in her and in her identity. And then helping her get clear on what she actually wanted, because she had spent so many years people pleasing, essentially doing things because she thought that she needed to appease others, or she thought that it was the quote right path to follow, kind of that societal path that we've all been conditioned to expect and to walk down. And so those were her three main issues. And what unfolded was one of the most beautiful pivots that I have yet to witness. And so I wanted to share it with you. And by the end of this episode, I hope that you'll see not only what's possible, but you'll also have a way to get support if you feel like you're in the same place, or if some of these threads are hitting deep, like you are able to see yourself in this woman. So let's call her Jen, because we love a good Jenny from the 70s, right? And Jen was in her early 50s when she came to me, and she had been in the same career for decades, like got out of schooling and went right into the career that she had. And so she came to me with this feeling of needing a shift. And here's the thing, she didn't say, I'm unhappy. A lot of times women feel like those are the words that are going to be traveling through their minds if something needs to change. But happiness has to be an active choice. So the point being here that you aren't necessarily saying, I'm unhappy. You might be, but you might also be saying something like, I just don't know what I want anymore. Or I've just got this feeling of blah or malaise all the time. And I don't want to feel this way. What my client said was, something feels off, but I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't really know what I need. So it was this prevailing feeling of confusion, just feeling like you're in this cotton ball cloud of fluff all the time in your brain. And yes, maybe some of that is part of perimenopause. And plus also, it's when you're looking back at your life and you're thinking to yourself, shit, I'm in my 50s, and am I even leading the life that I want to lead? This life that I've created for myself, this path that I have taken, has it resulted in a life that I truly love to lead and wake up in the morning excited about? And these kinds of phrases, these kinds of feelings are prevalent in the women who I work with. And I'm also curious, what is it that you are saying in your head? Do you hear the little voices in your head? What exactly are they saying? I would love for you to drop a comment if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you see the promo reel on Instagram. Drop a comment and tell me, what are you hearing in your head when you know that something needs to change? What's it saying? What is that little itty bitty shitty committee, shout out to Maggie, saying on repeat in your head? So I want to talk now about some of the things that I actually saw in Jennifer's chart and tie them to threads that were happening in her life. One of the main things that we did a lot of work with was her wide open ego center. And if you remember, in your human design, if you're looking at your chart, the ego center also goes by the name of the heart center. So the heart or ego or will also goes by the will center, is that little triangle. It's the little like isosceles triangle that pops off of the diamond in the center of the chart, which is your identity center. So when you look at that, oftentimes it's going to be undefined, because I think it's 30 something percent of people have it defined. So, 67 or so percent of the world has it undefined or open, meaning that they don't have one single gate that's activated in their ego center. And this point cannot be overstated. There is huge conditioning here. And I mean, even for those of you who have a defined will center or heart center, there's still conditioning here, because this is where worthiness lives. This is where the worthiness wound lives. And especially as women living in a patriarchy, I haven't met one woman yet who has this feeling like she has a completely healed heart and ego center and is never trying to prove anything, including sometimes trying to prove something to herself. So the problem here is because of the conditioning that we have, because of the ancestral ties that we have of women in our ancestry over generations having to prove their worth just because they're a woman is really deep work unraveling all of that. And what happens is we tell stories to ourselves about our worth when we're playing in a game that's just the chips are stacked against us from the very beginning. So, for example, as a woman, we are the birth givers, right, of the future generations. And plus, also in our society, that costs us. We are the ones who give our bodies to give life. And when we birth these beautiful new humans, we give our time and our care and our bodies continually to take care of them, to nurture them, to help them grow into beautiful young humans. And this comes at a cost to our physical vessel, to our work life. It comes at a financial cost because even though we were never earning as much money as our male counterparts in the same fucking job, don't even get me started on that, we are now having to come out of the workforce in order to birth our children. If you want me to do a pod on the whole patriarchy bullshit, just send me a DM and I can rant about that for probably a multiple pod set. But for now, the point is that this has to be deep subconscious work because it is literally getting at the roots of where this unworthiness is coming from, and it can go back generations. So some of the things that need to happen when you're looking at a completely open heart center is like subconscious work. And you need to brainwash yourself essentially only because you have these old programs running. They are already running, and it's up to you in order to stop the, what's the word I'm looking for? Brain fog. You're trying to break the chain. You are breaking the chain, but in order to do that, in order to break this ancestral pattern, you need to brainwash yourself. So what we did was create routines for my client Jennifer to support her gate 5 because she had gate 5 in her earth. And gate 5 is all about routines, right? And when you have a gate in your earth, it means that it's rooting you. So how do you then develop different things that you can pull into your daily life and make a ritual or make a routine? So some of the things we worked with were affirmations, journaling, subliminal audios, creating a subliminal audio for yourself to work to reprogram your subconscious while you're sleeping, super powerful. So those are some examples of one part of her chart where you can see how human design gives you the places to look. You know, when you say, I'm feeling stuck, or I don't know how to get out of this situation, or I don't know how to move forward, your human design is your map out of there. And you just have to look at it and get curious about, okay, what are some things that I can start to experiment with that are in my design that I can see plain as day as starting points? And it gives you the language and it gives you the specifics about what to focus on. You know, I think about going to therapy, for example, and my experience has been that some of my clients have a therapist as well as me, and they're working with both of us. So you might be working with internal family systems, for example, with your therapist, and then working on your human design and looking at not only your own design, but also the designs of your family to better understand and to get these golden nuggets like, oh, okay, I know I have a wide open ego or heart center. And I know from working in therapy that this worthiness shit is gotta stop with me. And so, how do I address that? Well, I also know that I have gate five. So, how can I put into place some rituals and routines to help support me to reprogram my subconscious, to reprogram my beliefs? And then we take some of the tools that I've used in the past and we apply them, we start to practice, and then things shift. Another thing that we looked at was her channel 3536. So the channel 3536 has this real restlessness and desire for change and new things and adventure. And it's like it wants to feel all the good new feelings. It's super excited to just go and adventure. And it connects the emotional solar plexus, which is the triangle facing the sacral, which is the second square from the bottom. So the solar plexus connected to the throat center, which is the third center down from the top of your chart. So it's that outer channel, 3536. And it's this like woohoo energy that it wants to go and it wants to really experience things. And connected to the throat, if you want to dive more deeply into the throat center, I highly suggest you check out my 3-part series that I did on ditching the phrase I'm fine in episodes 48 to 50, because I take a deep dive into the throat center, into the voices of the throat, and into how do we extract that phrase from our lexicon in midlife. So this was one thing that we looked at in her chart and just thinking about, okay, I feel stuck. So where in my life do I experience adventure? Where do I allow myself to experience adventure? Where do I allow myself to try new things? Am I trying new things? And this can be something as simple as, well, I'm going to pick up a star fruit in the grocery store because I've never had one. I'm going to eat it today. It can be something as simple as that. Or it could be something like, well, shit, I'm going on a retreat because this is what I am ready to do. And that can be your adventure that ends up completely blowing up how you look at things and also bringing you into connection with other women who are on the same path, who are doing the same kind of work and have the same curiosities that you do. And the last thing that I wanted to mention was her type, which was a generator type. And what we talked about was just being in work that did not light her up. And the importance of doing work that lights you up as a generator, again, it's one of those things that cannot be overstated, because if you're doing something that does not excite you, that does not, when you think about it, just you get the feels in your body, you get the sacral hits, you get the feeling of expansion, and it leads you to satisfaction. If that's not what's happening, then you're going to really struggle. You're going to have a really hard time. And you're going to have a hard time magnetizing new opportunities to you and the right people to you because you're out of alignment. So this woman worked with numbers. And honestly, I think she was just over it. It's like after decades of doing this, it's just time to cut ties and try something new. And when the work with numbers in finance don't light you up anymore, even if the money is really good, it's time to get curious about what else you might do. And it doesn't even have to relate to what you did before. That's another thing that you can look at in your chart. Is there are a few places that you can look for clues to, what might be another line of work that I could check out. So one of the things that we spent a fair amount of time working together on was the difference between burnout and misalignment. And there is crossover because when you are totally misaligned, it's really easy to get that feeling of burnt out, just feeling exhausted, feeling like you're trudging through quicksand, through really thick quicksand. Misalignment is that burnout that comes from not doing what aligns with your values, not doing what aligns with who you feel you are. And this may change. In fact, by the time you hit midlife, I would be really surprised if your values hadn't shifted. And doing a check in on this is a really powerful thing to do. It's something that I do at the beginning of every year. And this year in my human design planner, I front loaded a whole section on your values. And it's a chance for you to look at, what do I still value in this time of my life? And then to compare it to, how are you spending your time? Are you actually spending it on the things that you value? And if you find that, for example, you're spending all of your time at work and you're thinking about work when you're not working, and that doesn't match up with, let's say, family is one of your values, and you find that you're missing your kids' games, or that you're unable to be present for, XYZ. And so that's a great indicator of misalignment. And what can happen then is you end up feeling exhausted. It's your body, again, speaking to you saying, I do not have energy for this. And as a generator type, that's a question that you should ask yourself. Do you have energy for this? Does it bring you energy to do the thing? And I feel like I am a great example of this. You can hear the passion in my voice. You can hear me get charged up about things. And that is my energy channeling right through to you. You can hear it. And your voice may not echo mine. It may not sound, the same when you're passionate about something, but you may still be able to discern that feeling of, yes, I feel energized by this. Classic burnout is more just overwork and chronic stress. And so the difference is, you could potentially be doing something that really excites you and that you do like to do, and you're just doing it too much. You're burning out because you have spent more energy than you have available to you. And remember, our bodies are shifting so much, right? During this phase of perimenopause and midlife and getting into menopause, huge hormonal shifts. And our bodies need more rest to support that shift and that change. And so that exhaustion is probably going to land faster than it did when you were in your early 30s and your 20s, for example. Also, episode 38, I talk about exhaustion and the relationship to your open centers in your chart. So check that out as well. And then one of the last things we did was focus on her sacral authority to help her make decisions. Remember, if you have a sacral authority, you are able to make decisions in the moment. And the trick is trusting your body, trusting that sacral response, and building a really strong relationship with how it feels and your ability to understand when you are feeling it. It's that awareness again. So we did some sacral sessions, which sacral sessions are simply when I ask you yes or no questions and you practice just getting quiet and really listening. And listening may not be the best term because it's more of a feeling. You need to feel into that center part of your body and what's going on there. What are the sensations that your body is sending out? Those are direct communications. That is your sacral talking. So we spent a lot of time together working on, what does your sacral have to say about that? How does it feel in this moment? Can you discern when your fear is overriding your sacral response? When you feel fear and anxiety, How is that different from what your sacral sounds like? So we spent a lot of time unpacking that and unraveling those threads to understand so that when she got a sacral yes, she knew. There was no doubt. And she was then able to trust herself because she had spent enough time practicing with little things like food, for example, or plans for what she was going to do with a certain hour of her day, giving herself choices, different things like that. Start small. I love to start small so that we can build trust with ourselves and then continue to move to bigger decisions. So she stopped essentially asking what she should do and started asking what she felt in her sacral. And then she trusted that. And where is she now? Okay. She left her job. She is taking time off right now to, luckily, she had the means to be able to give herself a swath of time to just sit and listen to that sacral and see what she felt magnetized to her, what was coming into her life that felt like a sacral hit. And from there, she gets to make decisions to lead her to the next thing. And she was interested in some arts. And I mentioned that the work she had been doing was really focused in numbers. And so this was quite a pivot, thinking about doing something in the arts. And yet the magnetism of some of the things that were coming into her life while we were working together was so clear, and a chance for her to say like, ooh, that's actually interesting. That's exciting. I really want to know more about that, and feeling pulled toward it. And those are indications that your sacral is talking to you. Change isn't always that dramatic when I work with somebody. You don't always leave work. You don't always leave a career that you've been working in for decades. Sometimes, but sometimes you don't, or sometimes it's about making a plan to leave that work. It may not be that you leave your spouse. Maybe you show up differently and you just learn to do the work on yourself and nurture yourself because you feel more rooted in who you are and you have better self-awareness. When it comes to human design, we can look at your relationships. We can look at your connection charts. We can look at where the disconnect may potentially be happening. We can look at how have you evolved as a human, and has your partner evolved? And a lot of times what can happen is we change and grow at different paces. So we maybe just had a quantum leap, and our partners may still be kind of back in the old, what we consider the old ages, and something that we don't want to be part of. And my experience is that in being transparent and in communicating as well as you can where you're at, what your hopes and dreams are, what your expectations are, that's the best way to set yourself up for success. So I'm only bringing these examples up to say that sometimes the work is a lot more subtle because it's so highly personal. And sometimes simply raising your awareness so that you can meet yourself with more compassion, while also holding yourself to this high standard of, this is who I came here to be. So I'm going to be heard no matter what other people think. Even, quote, just doing that, even simply doing that, is the kind of pivot that can completely change your life. When you start living for yourself instead of living for other people, sister, that is chef's kiss. That is exactly what you need to be doing. And if that is the result that you get from working together and working with your human design, then I certainly can be no happier than to have helped you get there. So This story of Jennifer, it's not rare. It's pretty common. This midlife unraveling, this quiet malaise that so many women are going through, sometimes silently, sometimes not. Women are coming to me with this overall feeling that something is just off, and they're excited to learn about human design. They're excited to see how it can help support them. And my favorite way to approach using human design is with your real life examples. So I ask you, what is happening? What is unraveling in your life? And how can we take those situations and apply your design to them in order to help you move forward, in order to help you get unstuck? And this ultimately leads to a better work life if you're in some place that you actually want to stay. It leads to better relationships. It leads, most importantly, to better self-trust, stronger self-awareness, and personal growth. So if you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling foggy, if you're feeling tired of this life, and like you're, what was I thinking? It feels like the bikini that you used to wear when you were 30, that you're trying to put on your 45 to 55-year-old body, and it just doesn't look the same or feel the same. Here's the deal. You are not broken. You are not broken. You are not broken. You are not broken. You're just waking up. You're just waking up. You're just waking up. And that is so exciting. Waking up. Okay? And human design, it's not magic, but it is a mirror. It's a map. And when you're willing to look at it and willing to get into the nitty gritty, that is what can help you make those 1-degree pivots that ultimately turn the ship in a completely different direction. So if you're listening to this episode and you're nodding along and you're like, shit, that is me, I want to do this, I am ready, then I am offering a 15-minute midlife mapping call where we look at your chart, we talk about what's going on in your life, and we see what are the next steps that might support you to be even more clear on what do we do from here. And I'm not on these calls, I'm not here to pitch you. It's a conversation. And if we decide to work together after, great. But if not, then no matter what, you're going to leave with a better understanding of what's going on under the surface. So I'm going to drop a link in the show notes, and I only have 3 spots available for the rest of May. And once they are booked, the link will no longer work. So if you want one of those spots, then please book a time to chat with me. And I cannot wait to have that conversation with you, because there is nothing that lights up this generator more than helping midlife women to use human design to be who they came here to be. Thank you so much for listening today to Midlife by Design. And if today's conversation about Jenny on the block felt like I was talking directly to you, if you felt like, oh boy, Lori is calling me out, then I am inviting you to book a call and let's have a conversation about your human design, and most importantly, where you're stuck and how you're feeling drained and how to start unraveling that. So the call, again, is just a 15-minute quick check-in. I'm not going to pitch the shit out of you, so don't worry about that. It's more just getting on the call, taking a look at your human design, understanding what's happening, and then talking about if there are options that make sense for us to work together. Great. If not, hopefully I give you some gem that's going to help you make one of those 1-degree pivots that you always hear me talking about. So until next time, I am sending you the courage to let go of what's no longer serving you, joy to fill your days, and clarity to be who you came here to be.